Mr. Freeze began his life in Batman comics as Mr. Zero. He became Mr. Freeze only later on during the TV show when they changed the name. George Sanders was the first one to play Mr. Freeze on the TV series. Otto Preminger played Mr. Freeze as well on the TV series.
Mr. Freeze's character is formidable. Arnold is already formidable, and Mr. Freeze has to live at 0 or below degrees, and he would like the rest of the world to live at 0 or below as well. -10 would be actually perfect for him.
He wants to freeze the world, and he wants to make everyone as cold as Mr. Freeze's heart is, basically.
I think the tragedy of him and his wife and his love for her, and how his heart had literally gone cold because he couldn't find a cure, he couldn't save her, is an amazing story. And, unlike Batman, he had a chance to save her. And Batman never had a chance to save his parents, the people he loved as much as Mr. Freeze loved his wife.
Schwarzenegger was a great Mr. Freeze, coming off of some sense of depth to his character, and that maybe in the world of superheroes and supervillains, everything isn't always black and white.
Mr. Freeze is a very popular and sexy character. So all those women are surrounding him. But anytime they make a move on him, any kind of a sexual move or sexy move, he tells them that his, passion thoughts for his bride alone. He really is a man of principles. He is the whole thing that he does, and as evil as he is, but it's all for one thing, and that is for his wife.
One day, in the middle of filming of Batman and Robin, I was invited to the set, and I brought my nephew with me. And, he was maybe 7 at the time, and just see his eyes light up when he was on the Mr. Freeze set, and he got to meet Arnold Schwarzenegger and have a look around, and we saw the image of the girl floating in the tank. It was kind of cool to see that they had interpreted those bits of our animated mythos into the live-action movie. It's kind of fun, on the one hand, thinking that you made the cut, that what you brought to a character or a villain like Mr. Freeze meant enough that they interpreted it into the movie. Kind of nice being part of the ongoing mythology.
In the 1960s, Batman really had only one femme fatale that he had to deal with, which was Catwoman. And they needed some female characters, and Poison Ivy was the first to emerge as a seductive villainess in the Batman strip.
The introduction of Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy is spectacular. I mean, she's the perfect choice. You couldn't get a better choice than Uma Thurman.
The nature of most Batman villains is that they're dual personalities. They're originally somewhat well-intended. So Pamela Isley is the mad botanist who's slightly cracked and totally engrossed in her work, and she becomes Poison Ivy, who's a polar opposite. Isley's somewhat insecure and totally out to lunch, and Ivy is just the embodiment of confidence and self-possession.
With Uma playing Poison Ivy, who's a seductress, it gave us a wonderful psychological villainess who better than the most beautiful woman in the world to try to separate Batman and Robin and pit them against each other.
She's blowing a little love dust on us, which she actually didn't have to do. We both fight over Uma anyway. And makes us both want to, kill each other for her, which I understand. And she's something. She comes in the room and ain't nobody else in the scene. And that is the simple truth. Big, tall, beautiful, talented lady.
The great thing about having such a delightfully written character is that no matter what else is going on, when you actually go to work, you're met by something that's strong and encouraging and a lot of fun.
The Bane character in the comic book, he is the master villain that is responsible for breaking Bruce Wayne's back, or breaking Batman's back, crippling Bruce Wayne for life, which was a big change in the comic book. Wow, crippled superhero. How's Batman going to fight crime if he's got a broken back?
My guys created Bane. I had a little bit to do with it, mostly as a guy who was in the room with them. But my writers and my other editors created Bane as a guy who was very smart. He was raised in a prison, so he was just as disadvantaged as possible to be. Educated himself, figured out a way to break out, and we played him as like having a huge native intelligence. He was more than muscle. I mean, he was Batman's equal.
Bane came along at a time when I think the comic book creators were looking at a way to throw newer and bigger and more challenging adversaries at Batman. We have seen the criminal masterminds who match Batman with a combination of physical might and cleverness. I think they wanted to go the other way with Bane and do somebody who was just much more of a physical powerhouse that Batman could not overcome.
Bane was one of the characters that my 7-year-old godson taught me about, probably when he was about 5. And Bane is made out of steroids and venom. And he is, we use him in this film as Uma's pit bull. I mean, she just can't kiss everyone to death in Gotham City. You know, it's a lot of people to kiss. And so sometimes she just needs someone to break down a wall. So he's a wonderful addition.